All right, the first thing on the agenda is the third reading for the waste management. And there was a suggestion that we amend it to say curbside recycling, but I don't think that's going to serve any purpose. I'm open if we need to, but I don't think it serves any good purpose.
Curbside recycling program that's entirely.
Well, because there was a comment about the possibility of putting a recycle bin at the service or the fire department or the service center. And I did talk with Vince on that, and he said, well, then that would be an extra charge. And, you know, it would be filling up faster than you think, inside of 2 days, whatever. So I think we might be shooting ourselves in the foot if we actually say that we're going to do that, and we cannot with waste management. Actually, the Lions Club has proposed some kind of recycling. Have you heard? I missed the last meeting, so I haven't heard that. But that was one of the suggestions. Yes. So, okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
did waste management say what each pickup would cost if they did set another, if they set a dumpster?
No, he said they would have to go back and negotiate. But at this point in time, all we're trying to do is do a little bit of trimming and get bills paid. So at this point in time, it probably wouldn't make sense for us to add that. But I will call him tomorrow.
For future references.
Exactly. I will call him and ask him for the number. Go ahead, Alex.
Ron, he suggested, what he said was, if you go to the parks and you look at the dumpsters, people do use it for a garbage bin. And so we'll have to take a look at that, because during the night, couches and everything else matters.
Yeah.
Got to think about that also.
It's just like those Planet 8, those big yellow bins. We've been talking to those folks knock on the door frequently and ask if they can put their bins up around the city. We've had them, and there's stuff all over the ground, coming out of the tops. It's just, it's not been a good idea. Go ahead.
Anthony's constituent, Ms. Majora, came after council meeting, and she had an idea where, and I think it's more like a dressing stuff, and I don't think it's thought out yet, but the premise was that if we emailed our constituents, how many people would be interested in gathering their plastics and whatever, and then having some volunteers come through residents with their pickup trucks. She found locations that they could be disposed of. And I think that was admirable for the idea, but it would be all grassroots effort. So I mean, this is something she still wants to pursue. She seems to be really quiet, and and I don't know, Anthony, did you hear that too? She talked to you about that? So are you thinking of helping her with this?
Well, we need to research it a little bit more and go from there. I'm sure there are programs out there that do it for charity and stuff like that, so.
Not plastics, though, but.
Well, you never know.
And cans. There is a recycling thing over on Harbor, which recycles cans. If anybody wants to go to that show, she might be
Also,
down.
the
They do.
road
What
next
do
to
they do?
service center.
What do they do? Just cans? Junk. Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
concerning the waste management contract, the amount that was collected last year was almost $1.5 million, which is more than sufficient to pay the current annual contract with waste management. Furthermore, there was a $500,000 carryover balance as of January 1st in Funds 251, which is for solid waste pickup. So I believe that the money is coming in for this. And if we are to cut it and then use those funds elsewhere, then in my opinion, this would be the same as having an unvoted tax on their, increasing their property taxes by taking that special assessment money and using it to pay general expenses. So therefore, I would not be able to vote for this, because the money is coming in from the residents for this service that they want to have. And for us to take that money and spend it for general expenditure, I think would be wrong of us to do honest.
Well, that's your opinion. And we also, go ahead,
Madam Chair.
go ahead.
Also with that, if you look at your tax statement, there is, I believe, an issue with the monthly fee. Myself, my property, I am being charged $15.90 a month, where you look at the contract here, there's nothing even over, with recycling, over $12 in year 3, and then it incrementally goes up, goes up. So the 90 cents is a SPA fee, which I'm sure is a processing fee, but I believe that we've been overcharged for these many years. And I'm seriously wondering where that extra money went. The residents are continually asking me, is there going to be an adjustment on it? Because you can go down the auditor's site and look, and it says right there $15 a month. And normally I don't check because, I have confidence in, the billing and stuff, but, I was kind of shocked that it was 15. So there is a disparity of what's being collected, what's actually in the contract, and then what's being paid.
Irene, have you any comments on the contract? I know you've looked at it.
Yes, I did, but let me first address the carryover balance. One of the fallacy in pulling those numbers is that we all know all of 2013 operations were not included in 2013. Now, there was a reference that there was a $500,000 carryover, but if you recall, we were paying off a $442,000 past due that we had worked out from October through December. So technically that will wipe out that surplus. So we really are not coming into the year with a surplus. I just want to clear that up.
Thank you.
Secondly, when I looked at the contract, basically, as they stated, the figure that's calculated is what we pay them. But according to the ordinance that I read, or resolution, is that the assessment was not calculated or stated in those terms. It just stated one fee. It did not say, from what I could read, that we're charging so much for recycling and so much for the garbage pickup. It just said the assessment. So, and then also the assessment for the homestead without half the regular. So that will offset it. So I think it's a misnomer for us to think that we're making money off of that.
Any other comments on this? Yeah. Alex?
And the rate was $15. I seen somewhere $15. I have all the paperwork I got. I didn't bring it, but I did see where we was charged $15. So that must have been the charge. I can go through my tax bills.
I'm looking at, resolution 2013-55. This states the monthly rate of $15 per residence and $7.50 for a homestead exemption.
Yes, that's it.
So I'm not sure of the $15.90, but I'm just looking at
That's the
what's on
one.
file. So there really is not a surplus in that fund.
Go ahead.
Bill, I heard what you said. 11% of the residents participate in recycling. And I'm one of them. Most of us backed it before you got here. We're talking 11%. We're talking about a deficit. Give 1.5, whatever it is, we're in trouble. So that leaves 89% of the residents says no to the levy. Fine. That's telling me you live with what you got and you gotta have cuts. That's for us to decide. The mayor, Irene, us. So 89% of the people did not want to participate. They didn't want to pass the levy. We had the hard decisions to dig out of this deficit. So 11% of those people, I've had approximately 13 calls. I wish I'd have brought the book right now to show you my phone call. Which they heard other people talking, because someone was talking to them, telling them, after I got done explaining to 13 people, 10 to 20 minutes, sometimes more, on the whole city thing. They agreed with me. They agreed with me. We have to dig ourselves out. We cannot keep fighting us, the city. Fighting who? The mayor? Irene? This is the city we're talking about. 1.5 million. We have to start. After I got done talking to the people, they agreed with me. Down the road, things get better, we can pick back up on it. And the rate was the rate. So I'm all for this legislation.
Okay, this is on the third reading, so we will do the vote tonight. Yes?
This money doesn't go into the general fund, it goes straight into its own fund, Fund 251, which is the solid waste collection. We collected almost $1.5 million last year. That was the year-to-date revenue, which is more than enough to cover, as I said. So the carryover balance is kind of a moot point. But here's the thing that I'd like to point out. Being that this is going into its own separate fund, are we prepared to tell people that we're collecting their trash money so that we can keep it in this fund until we transfer it to the general fund to pay general expenses? That's what we're going to have to do to pay general expenses. We're going to have to transfer it from one fund to the other, unless we want to break the law and spend it on something that is not allocated for. So this to me would be an illegal or an improper procedure to raise funds. If we wanted to raise funds, then we should go through the normal tax routes to pay our general expenses, not try to take money from one fund that's designated particularly for a particular service and then use it to pay our general expenses.
Thank you. And I'm going to end this conversation to ask Irene, do you feel that this is illegal or improper in the way that we are paying these bills?
From what I can see, based on my short time, is that we're not paying other bills as of this time out of that fund other than the rubbish. And from what I can see, these are not restricted funds, they're just designated funds, which means that you can undesignate them. And secondly, it is illegal, as he stated, you don't transfer money into the general fund, you transfer it out of the general fund. And you'll have to have special legal provisions to do that. So there's nothing that we're doing illegally. We're not transferring money from there to the general fund. But I don't see where those funds are restricted funds. They're designated funds.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 214-38, and this is an online auction for surplus equipment, which is no longer needed, which is an interesting concept. govdeals.com. Any questions on this? And I'm not sure who, Irene, would you be handling this, or is this service? And do we want to pass this tonight?
Actually, all capital assets come through the finance department according to the laws of audits and that. This is common from where I sit, that there's auctions off equipment or furnishings that we don't need. So I don't see anything wrong with this.
And the sooner we pass this, the faster we can get online. Is there a limit, Chief, are you aware of the limitations of this this whole online auction. Sometimes they have a month, sometimes they have a week
For gov deals or just in general?
in general.
I don't know, I'm not familiar with gov deals.
Okay.
I mean, I'm familiar with propertyroom.com, which is
Right.
something the police departments
Okay.
use for their property, and I'm familiar with those restrictions, but I don't really know what the
Okay.
restrictions would be for city property. I'm sure it's probably much less stringent than what would be taken as forfeiture or evidence.
Okay. All right, we can put it on first reading, or we can pass it tonight and hope that we can get it moving.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
do we have a list of what these items are?
I personally do not have a list. I know there is a list. Everything was.
I can get you a list.
Yes.
Madam President, it's basically, if anyone wants to take a ride through the service garage and go in the back, you'll see there's old police cars, there's old pickup trucks, there's some old vans, trailers that are like embedded into the field, into the soil. I mean, it's stuff that will not even run. It's been pilfered for parts, and you know, the whole rob Peter to pay Paul thing, they haven't been started. There's, you know, they're like actually seized up, almost like they're frozen in time. And they're, even the old generator, we put it over there, and, you know, because we have no security there, we don't know who, but somebody came in and started stripping things off of it, and, you know, probably taking what was valuable. So, there's kitchen equipment, which was when we used to have a kitchen staff that prepared meals for the inmates at our city jail. We have, like, you know, refrigeration units, freezer units, a meat slicer, you know, some ovens. It's just things that we are not going to have any use for. That actually probably has some high value to someone in the restaurant business that will probably, you know, buy it for more money than we could get if we scrapped it. And it's the same with the vehicles. I mean, there are a few that are, you know, if you're a mechanic and you know what you're doing, you could probably make them run again. How much you should get out of them, who knows? But, you know, we have no use for any of these things. They haven't run in many, many years. And, you know, it's just like some assets sitting there that we could, and we need the money, so let's get rid of them. We used to have an auction with Bedford and Bedford Heights, and we would have to tow everything over there, and you know, then if nobody bought it, we'd have to tow it back, and that would cost us money, and we'd have to give, you know, the part of the proceeds to the auctioneer who was selling this stuff. So this is a lot cheaper, quicker, faster, and it could help us.
Okay, let's try to suspend the rules and pass this tonight unless we have an objection.
Madam Chair.
Yes?
I would want to see some type of inventory list before I pass something like this. This is just a blanket authority to sell something. What if we, some things have gone wrong in the past. What if we sold something and then we regretted it later and they'd say, well, you gave them authority. You gave us authority and we sold it. I'd like to see some type of inventory list.
You wanted to go over and inspect the inventory, is that what you're saying? You can't take the word of the...
I think it seems like general procedure, if you're entering into any kind of contract, you would say, I'm approving something particular, not merely a blanket.
Okay, anyone else have a concern? Opinion here?
I'll make sure everybody gets a list. And they can also, everyone has a computer and they know how to go on the internet. You can even go and look at it. Because everything is backed up with a photo.
All right, so we have to put this on the first reading, or do you think we can do a third?
I'm ready to vote on it.
Vote?
We've done it in the past.
Vote. Okay, let's go. And you'll get your, everyone should get a copy of what the objects are. Now again, they do, if you do online and all that go on with some of the sales, you will see pictures. And we did take pictures, correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that always helps.
That's a requirement.
2014-39, this is the fees for foreclosure properties introduced by Councilwoman Jones. What are you thinking, Joan?
Actually, it was just to change the fee amount and just to enlighten people. I did send you guys, and I don't know if anybody had a chance to go to, the best resource I had was Safeguard Properties that has a list by state of all of the municipalities municipalities that have enacted a vacant foreclosure filing ordinance and their fees. So I have that available here, but just to give you a little bit of a heads up, this is a list of all of the foreclosures that are still either pending or active in Maple Heights. There are 260 homes since June of last year that are in some status of foreclosure. 33 of those have been dismissed, which again, to me, that means that we are in some type of a limbo state with this house because the bank either has to reintroduce the foreclosure or they release the lien and we're stuck with another vacant house. 10 are still occupied and they have declared bankruptcy, and there's 19 of these homes that are scheduled for sale this year. We have not had the opportunity or the staffing to, I think, keep up with this ordinance. I am volunteering to take that on. If the only thing that I would consider, if council wanted to have a discussion on changing the amount, we feel that it's too stringent, but I would like to have it passed tonight so that I can start working on this, so to generate some income.
Any comments? Anthony?
What's the average charge for safe harbor?
There are fees in here anywhere from $100 to $10,000 bond to $20. I think the average fee is probably between $200 and $250. $500 just came up because of, I think it was Mentor has something like that, and I'm not sure because I've been looking at stakes and amounts. I think, and I came up actually with that total, because if there is no one that's doing property preservation, and if it is an abandoned home, then we're stuck, taxpayers as well as, in which we all are, we're stuck paying grass cutting fees and we don't get reimbursed for that. So for all the times that the fire department goes out to these properties and the police department goes out to, with the kids that are trying to break in, break windows, steal copper, revaluing these houses, and there's an abundance of them, I think we need to, and then we do board and we do maintain some of them through the service department as well as through our grass cutting contracts. I think it's fair to start catching up on some of the funds and just make do.
Any comments, questions? Go ahead.
I agree with Tony. I thought it was excessive at first. And going through the neighborhood Monday, Tuesday, and today, foreclosed properties, it's a wreck. But like Tony said, she's going to volunteer. We should be compensated for the amount of paperwork, stamps, whatever it takes. And if they want to foreclose, they foreclose the tenants out of the house, they should pay something for the upkeep or cut the grass paper.
Who's paying for the fee and how are we going about the collection process and ensuring that they're coming to pay?
That's a crapshoot, but the letter will be going to the attorney that is filing the foreclosure for the mortgage company, because it was done in the past, and it goes to an agency. Actually, we have large law firms, and there's a few of them in Cleveland that represent these mortgage companies. So the letters will be going to the specific person that's on the foreclosure file, and they bring forth the foreclosure. What was the other question? I'm sorry.
Oh, and who's paying them, and then how do we go about the collection, and what is the recourse if they don't abide by the ordinance?
I don't think we have any recourse that we can do. I mean, we can bring the attorney in, but when this ordinance, if it does pass, and when it passes, will go to Safeguard and LPS, which posts it on their website. All the mortgage people, the companies have access to this, and they notify Wells Fargo, Chase, whoever else is out there in regards to the enactment. I don't know what the success rate was when Don was doing it, but it brought in a significant amount of funds. Enforcement would just be keep sending the letters, and poor Irene's gonna be getting the check. So if you have the time to, actually log these and maybe keep in touch, and hopefully this might staff a person at some point in time, or help out with the building department to do this. Part two of this, I would like to, since this is only addressing foreclosed properties and foreclosure filing of properties, it doesn't address vacant homes. And I would like there to be a part two to this eventually, to have a vacant housing registration, which would include vacant homes that are for sale with bogus for sale signs in front, because I don't know how many realtor companies I called today. Oh, I don't list that house isn't mine, because I'm trying to get them to cut the grass. And there are people that live out of Maple Heights that still own property they're mothballing it. But if you're doing that, there's no law against that, but maintain the property, or we will.
Can't trace it.
There's ways.
And call them for sale signs, they'll do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And the house is in foreclosure, the signs, they're probably selling it through mortgage company.
One guy asked me if the city wanted the metal sign to recycle. I wanted a, really?
And do you want
I'm
to,
on camera,
do you, are you thinking of passing this tonight? Is that what you
so.
would
I would
like?
like to, if everybody could use $500, I would negotiate. But I want it to be that it's gonna, to a point for, this is a product of a lot of the predatory lending that happened years ago, the unscrupulous realtors, appraisers, mortgage companies, they made a lot of money off of these properties. The cities that are left over, and I think basically the inner ring suburbs are catching the same problems over the last couple of years that Cleveland already has tried to overcome, and now it's our problem because they got hit before we did to a point. And we need to survive, and this is one way to do it without really hurting them. It costs a lot of money to report the foreclosure. So I don't think that the,
And time.
exactly, and attorney's fees, and then trying to find the person,
Right.
and at least this way, we have the money to maintain the house in the process.
Any other comments on this?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I did look over the list that you had from Safeguard. There was roughly 100 properties. 94% of them were $200 or less. So this is not the norm. It is pretty high, $500. But there were other ways I saw that cities dealt with it. One of them was bonding, like the one that was
Right.
listed at the top. So you could request an escrow, and then if there were problems, then you could assess your fee to that.
Yeah, I don't know if we have
To that
the
escrow.
power to do that. And another one, and not to cut you off, was also if they would put in a alarm system, they would have a fee off of the reduction. I don't see that happening with electricity.
The concern that I have is that I'm sure that there are law-abiding property owners, even mortgage companies, who are actually mowing their grass. So to make an across-the-board judgment that all are bad and therefore all be punished, I think is, first of all, incorrect. But then secondly, it sounds to me as if a lot of this is coming from a kind of an attitude of animosity toward these lenders, mortgage companies, property owners. And I think that that is the wrong angle to come from on this. If people are breaking the law, we need to figure out how to enforce the laws, not punish them ahead of time in the event that they do break a law. That, to me, sounds like the wrong way around in creating laws.
I understand what you're saying, and there has been lawsuits brought up through the city of Cleveland and won for a lot of the unscrupulous ways that they have dealt with home buyers in the past, and that money was used for demolition. And if we raise enough money through this, and I'm sure that your district isn't pristine, and neither is ours, the homes that you see that are vacant with the high grass and boards, I don't think that that shows responsibility on any owner's part, including a mortgage company, to leave a house in that state along with the street where it fits. She's trying to survive. Sonny, that's just my disagreement respectfully, and I think that if you want, I have some animosity. I work in the city of Cleveland, I live in the city, I drive around, I went almost down every street, and they should be ashamed of themselves. They're leaving us with a product, and that's all.
But that's not all of the people that will be charging the $500. Not all of them, not every mortgage company, not every property owner refuses to maintain their property because of the draft. So I am not willing to punish those law-abiding property owners because others don't do what they're supposed to
And
do.
if you could find those for me, I would gladly accept that list.
I think we're talking about foreclosed properties here. The other thing I'm going to ask is, are you going to make a commitment to do all of the work, which has to be actually funneled through the building department, because you're going to have to, yes, okay. Because it really, it's the building department that has all of that computer work, yeah. So,
I don't need that.
you don't need them? Okay.
I mean, you know what, I understand, I mean, they have to be vacant, and I have right off the sheriff's database, or off the court's database of all the foreclosure files.
The money goes into their computer and it's
Well, how the money comes in, that's you guys.
No, it would have to be you, because it has to go
Yeah.
through that. It doesn't go directly to the finance
No, it
department,
goes
it
to
goes through
building.
the building department.
Okay.
And the finance department gets the real money, but she doesn't get the paperwork.
Because
Building
I
department.
got you.
Yeah, they're getting some now. They do get some, things like that.
Madam Chair.
Okay,
Real quick, one of the things that I hear on this is trying to generate enough money to cover the expenses that the city is incurring in cutting the grass and boarding out and the police and fire running out there for calls. So I don't know if it's so much of a punishment on everybody, but more so, again, trying to get to a cost neutral point. When we have a foreclosed house, I think we all know that the house is going to sit there for a while. It's not going to go into foreclosure and then out in a week or so. So we might be stuck with it for a summer or two of grass cutting. And that amount that was on there before definitely didn't cover 2 cuts. So for that reason alone, I think the amounts might be high, but I think the offset of us covering all of those properties, I think this is okay.
You know, and I
Thank you.
appreciate that, but it also just, I'm sorry, just the last closing argument.
Please.
Is most of these homes are not just vacant for 6 months and that's it, and we have a happy family moving in there. I think the average vacancy of any home, I know I have some in my district that have been vacant 35 years. So after there is a dismissal of a foreclosure based on some type of technicality or robo signing or whatever you want to call it, it still becomes our problem after the bank walks away. And then who does the maintenance? There's no insurance, there's nobody cutting the grass, there's nobody fixing the windows. So even though I don't think that maybe this whole process was thought up to cause this kind of despair on any of the cities throughout the entire United States, I think it's just a product of what happened, and part of that was greed.
thank you. Moving on to 14-40 is to authorize the engineer to begin the bid process for Libby Road, which will be from Northfield to Bedford Heights to Lee Road. And this was supposed to be starting, we were hoping in June. So I would suggest that we actually pass this tonight so we can get moving on it. And it is only a bid process. But the next one, which is 2014
Madam Chair, question about that.
41, I'm sorry.
Question about the previous one, 2014-40. How much will this, Mr. Mayor, how much will the city be needing to pay as this project goes forward? What will be the cost to the city?
No, I didn't bring my Libby Road file with me, but I can tell you that this is a mere ordinance of the Lee Road ordinance that is right after it, that it's a 0% loan through the Ohio Public Works Commission, and those are usually spread out over a 20-year period or longer. So we've used these type of projects many, many times in the past, but I apologize, I did not bring that number or my file with me. At this time, I can tell you that the brunt, or like 90-some% of the project, is going to be paid for by ODOT, since Libby Road is State Route 17. So they are going to be paying for the brunt of it.
You don't have even a rough idea of what the number is?
You know, Irene, you remember, I believe it's less than $100,000.
It wasn't substantial. I don't remember because we discussed a lot of projects, so
Yeah.
I don't want to give out the wrong number for the wrong project.
I can make sure you get it tomorrow.
Is Ed Bren here tonight?
No.
It's not here tonight? It's just this, to get the specs together,
Madam
yes.
President,
Alex?
Irene, how much money do we have in the street repair program?
Let's see. What I have here is 2013. Let me send it to you so that you are up to date.
We're not in the deficit.
The street repair, I think the street lighting.
Madam President, to answer your question, Councilman Adams, the municipal motor vehicle license plate tax, which $5 and an additional $250 from the city, generates about $150,000 a year for asphalt and concrete repairs. So, as long as people are renewing their license plates on their cars, that money comes in after, it goes to the state and county, and we get our share. So, there is money that's budgeted for that. The nice thing is that through the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, as you know, we've done some major road work in this city, Rockside, Broadway. We've done probably close to 100 side streets that we resurfaced and even replaced some with concrete. So we haven't needed as much of that money in the past few years to make pothole repairs and patching and things like that, crack sealing. So we should be okay with this.
Yeah, and that was my next question, Mayor. I understand how we'd like to see Libby Road get paid. And we never received any payments for 2013, so we know there's going to be money to pay for this.
Well, we do, and here's the, there's always like a hook in any project. That ODOT is planning on a major renovation on the I-480 bridge over Valley View, eastbound and westbound, and they're going to be shutting down lanes and detouring traffic for a couple of years. And that's why this project, they want this to go, because we are going to see an increased amount of traffic on Libby Road, because people are going to be getting off 271 and 480 up at Miles and Northfield, and they're going to be cutting down Libby Road and Granger Road to get around this and going all the way down the canal. So we need, this road is in deplorable condition. So we do need to, get ODOT out there and get the process started, because it needs to be resurfaced before that traffic jam comes, and it's coming.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, do we have is this supposed to be done this year?
The
Which one are you
project
talking
will,
about?
Libby Road?
Libby Road, yes.
Yes,
In
it's
June.
going to be started this year. It
Started.
won't be completed this year.
That was the original plan, was to begin in June, correct? Isn't that what I heard?
Yes, and then ODOT wants to get going on it this year.
Good. 21441 is to begin the prep plans for Lee Road, which is another project. And it only entails not even the bid process, I'm sorry. Okay, the bid process.
Talked about this last year. This is the project over the bridge.
It's
Is it
on
right?
each, Madam President,
On
if I
either
may,
side.
it's on each side of the bridge. The county resurfaced the bridge deck itself last year, so this would be on the north side and the south side. All the bad concrete slabs and joints and whatnot that are there up into the Cleveland line on the north side would be replaced, and then coming south, as you're coming up the hill to Raymond, there's a lot of bad concrete in there. That would be replaced
Yeah,
also.
this has been pending. If you
Madam Chair.
move over to your expenditures
Madam
for
Chair.
1,000, yes?
Question regarding 41. Mr. Mayor, it says that we've been awarded a $270,000 zero interest a 0% interest loan
Right.
from the state. You said 20 years to pay those?
Usually
Back.
that's the norm, is anywhere from 10 to 20 years, depending on the project and the dollar amount.
What will be the impact, what will be the frequency and the amount of payments that we'll need to pay pay this back? And how much are we already paying? I'm assuming we probably already have some of these loans that we're making payments to. How much will that all sum to, and how much will this add to it?
You know, we do have a few that we're still paying on, but I can tell you we paid, it was a few months ago, we made some payments at the beginning of the year. I believe one of them was for Broadway. I'm not sure where the other one might have been. It might have been on Granite Road. But again, this would be paid out of that municipal motor vehicle license plate fund.
And there will be enough annually on a recurring basis to pay all of the expenses we have for these types of projects, past and.
I would say yes, because I've never seen that fund that collected on those license plates. It's usually around 150 grand. I mean, there's been a couple years where it might have been a little lower, maybe when, you know, the recession and people weren't buying cars or whatever, but it usually generates about that much money.
Okay, can we move on to 42, 2014-42, which actually is we're going to suspend. Yes. 42 is the actual contract that we are entering into with Kurt Scott. And everyone should have the addendum. Everyone has this? Yes? Any questions, concerns? Overall. Are we good to pass this? This is the program for Myland, the 3 streets, Fairway, and Applegate that we've been talking about for several meetings. So we'd like to get this moving as well. So if we could possibly pass this on third. Would you please go over to expenditures? I think expenditure is the only thing we have tonight. About one. That's it. Okay. Any questions on that?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So we had to repair a light, traffic light. The service department, or signal service, we call an outside company to do that. How much do we have budgeted for this type of expenditure? I
No, I
noticed
don't know.
the available budget column still is not filled in.
I can't tell you that at this time. I don't have the budget in front of me, but I can tell you that this is pretty normal, that we do have repairs that need to be made from time to time on certain traffic lights around the city. And we usually come under budget from whatever we allocate, so. The systems that we have are fairly new. You know, a lot of them were replaced not too long ago, especially in the main intersections. And I believe this one, Chief, or Captain, is at in front of the fire station, which is really essential to stop traffic when an engine or a squad has to get out in an emergency. So, but our service department really can't fix these things. We're not equipped to it. We don't have the knowledge or the skills.
Okay, and I just have one announcement for you. We talked the other night about the possibility of a meeting next week, and Edwina was gracious enough to drop her meeting on May 28th. We will have a special council meeting on May 28th. 6 o'clock, we will conduct the interview that we were not able to do the other night for the candidate for planning and zoning, and then at 6:30, we will have a presentation by Newport Square, and the gentleman who is proposing that project. And any lingering, anything else that's lingering at that point, so. Yeah. And I will announce that at the meeting. Yes?
I was informed by a resident that they didn't get their application for the planning and zoning. So I would like to have them have an application submitted.
They didn't get their application, what do you mean they didn't get it? Or to come back. Okay, all right, we're good to go?
Madam Chairman, we
Yes,
also have a
yes,
piece
yes.
down for the cameras, for the speed cameras for Wednesday. I assume we're gonna, Mayor, do you want that on for Wednesday? I didn't have a chance, but
If it's ready, sure.
I think you should give it at least a first
Yes,
reading.
yes. Yep.
Talking about putting the cameras up and generate some income. We have to make some quick decisions here, guys. I mean, I know you wanna try to locate it.
Is he going to be here, or the gentleman?
I can have him
who's
here
gonna
if
see
you'd
the
like, but I
contract?
don't know how long the other
Yeah, I
presentation
don't
will be.
either. I don't either. I can talk to him.
He gave a presentation today for about
Oh, did
a
he?
half hour. The chief and I and the mayor
Read my
and
camera.
a few others were present, the service director.
I
and-
just wanna know where to put.
Well, we haven't quite figured out. We gotta make sure you guys will allow it before we
Just
figure
tell
out.
him he's gotta be here,
He
that's
said-
all.
Yes, I can make him be here, no
That's
problem.
all, someone's gotta be here.
He would've came tonight, but I didn't.